She kissed a billionaire to save his life, knowing it would cost her everything. In a moment of sheer desperation, a single kiss sparked a firestorm of accusations, exposed a deadly conspiracy, and changed two lives forever. But how did a humble maid become the only person standing between a kind-hearted man and his wicked wife's murderous plot? This is the story of Ella, the kiss that shattered worlds, and the shocking truth that unfolded from one brave, reckless act. Stay tuned to discover how it all began.
The air in the small Lagos apartment was thick with heat and unspoken disappointment. Ella sat perfectly still on a low stool, a formal-looking letter trembling in her hand. The words, "We regret to inform you," blurred before her eyes. This was the third rejection this month. Each one felt like a door slamming shut, the echo a little louder than the last. From the corner of the room, a ragged cough broke the silence. Her father, his frame frail against the warm cushions of the armchair, struggled to catch his breath. Her mother knelt beside him, rubbing his back, her own face etched with a tiredness that sleep could no longer cure. Ella's degree certificate, neatly framed, hung on the wall behind them, a bright, mocking promise of a future that had never arrived. The front door creaked open, and her older brother, Chidi, walked in. The smell of sweat and dust from his construction site job clung to him. His eyes, hard and weary, scanned the room and landed on the letter in Ella's hand. He didn't need to ask what it was. "Nothing again?" His voice was flat, drained of all its former hope. "Mrs. Adeyemi stopped me again today. She was asking when our big-shot graduate would finally get a job at an oil company. She said our parents must be so proud." He let out a short, bitter laugh. What was I supposed to tell her, Ella? That pride doesn't pay the rent or buy medicine? Ella looked down, the shame burning her cheeks. "I'm trying, Chidi. You know I am." "Trying?" He took a step forward, his voice rising with a pent-up fury. "Do you know what I gave up for you? I carried blocks and mixed mortar so you could carry your textbooks. I gave you my chance. We all did." He gestured wildly towards their parents. "Look at them. They spent their whole lives' savings, their peace, everything on you. For what?" The question hung in the air, heavy and accusatory. Ella felt its weight crush her. She saw the truth in her father's labored breathing, in her mother's weary silence, in the ghost of her brother's abandoned dreams. Her education, which was meant to be their collective triumph, felt like a millstone around all their necks. Without another word, she stood up, her movement stiff. She folded the rejection letter carefully, tucking the failure away. "I'm going out," she whispered, her voice thick with unshed tears. "I will find something today." She walked out, the door closing on the suffocating atmosphere of the apartment. Outside, the bustling energy of the city was a stark contrast to the stillness she left behind. She merged with the crowd, just another young face in a sea of millions, all chasing the same elusive dream. A chance. The city air was a humid blanket, thick with the smells of exhaust, fried plantain, and dust. Ella walked without a real destination, the sharpness of Chidi's words playing on a loop in her mind. For what? For what? She was so lost in her thoughts, she barely noticed the first drops of rain. A light drizzle began to fall, and she quickened her pace. The sound of a powerful engine cut through the city's din. A black SUV, sleek and imposing, sped through a large, rain-filled pothole she had been trying to avoid. A wall of muddy, gray water erupted from the tire, hitting her with the force of a slap. Ella froze, gasping. The cold water soaked through her best interview blouse and skirt in an instant. Mud dripped from her hair. Standing there, drenched and humiliated, she felt the last of her composure wash away. Inside the luxurious vehicle, Emeka Obiagu, a man in his 30s with a kind, thoughtful face, glanced back, his brow furrowed in immediate concern. "Francis, stop the car. Look what we've done to that poor girl." Beside him, Amah didn't look up from her phone. "Don't be dramatic, Emeka. It's just a little water. She'll dry off. We're late." "Amah, that is no way to be," Emeka said, his voice firm. "Francis, reverse please." The SUV rolled back until it was level with the shivering Ella. Emeka stepped out, ignoring the rain. "Young woman, I am so terribly sorry. This is completely our fault." He pulled out a crisp bill from his wallet. "Please, allow me to pay for the cleaning of your clothes." Ella looked at the money, then up at his concerned face. "Thank you, sir, but it's okay. I was almost home anyway." Her voice was polite but carried a deep weariness. "Please, I insist," Emeka pressed, his kind eyes searching her face. "A young lady like you, walking in this weather, do you live in this neighborhood? We can at least give you a lift. It's the least I can do." The genuine concern in his voice was her undoing. Ella gave a small, sad shake of her head. "No, sir, I don't live here. I was just taking a walk, clearing my head." She attempted a weak smile that didn't reach her eyes. "It's been a long day." Emeka studied her, seeing the dejection she couldn't quite hide. "A long day. I hope it wasn't trouble at work." He meant it as polite conversation, a way to put her at ease. The question, though gentle, broke through Ella's fragile composure. She lowered her gaze, fighting back the sting of tears. "There's no trouble at work, sir," she murmured, her voice trembling. "I'm still job hunting. I just got another rejection letter, and I needed a walk to clear my head." Amah, who had been listening with growing impatience, now rolled down her window fully. Her gaze, cold and assessing, swept over Ella's drenched, modest clothing. "So, another unemployed graduate flooding the streets," she said, her tone devoid of sympathy. She looked at her husband. "This is why I tell you not to stop for these people. It's always a story." She turned her attention back to Ella. "Since you are so desperate, can you be my maid? I can pay you something decent. It's better than walking in the rain with nothing, isn't it?" The offer was a blatant insult. Ella's first instinct was to refuse. But then she saw the image of her father's empty medicine bottle. She heard Chidi's voice. For what? She glanced from Amah's cold, expectant face to Emeka's apologetic one. The pride that had kept her shoulders straight slowly melted away, and she gave a quiet nod. They looked wealthy. Working for them could help her earn some money while she continued her job search. And who knows, being in their circle might just open the doors she'd been praying for. "Yes, madam," she whispered, the title tasting like ash in her mouth.
"I can." Ella stood before the tall iron gates of the Obiagu mansion, holding her small suitcase that suddenly felt heavier than ever. When the gates opened by themselves, she froze for a second. The house before her looked like something from a dream, made of glass and concrete, surrounded by perfect green lawns and bright flowers that looked too beautiful to be real. The driveway was so long it could have been her whole street back home. When she reached the huge front doors, they opened to reveal a breathtaking sight. The floor was polished marble, shining so much it reflected the chandelier above like water. The air smelled clean, like lemon and flowers. Everything felt too big, too rich. She almost felt like an intruder walking through a palace. A serious-looking housekeeper led her to the servants' quarters. Her new room was small, just a single bed, a wardrobe, and a window overlooking the garden. But to Ella, it felt like a gift. It was peaceful, private, and finally hers. She touched the clean sheets and smiled weakly. After months of struggling, she finally had a place to sleep and a chance to send money home. In the days that followed, she began to notice the differences inside the mansion. Mr. Emeka Obiagu, the master of the house, was quiet and kind. He was one of the richest men in Nigeria, the head of Obiagu Industries, a company that built roads, bridges, and power plants all over the country. But despite all that wealth, he was humble. One morning, he found her cleaning his library. "You're Ella, yes?" he asked calmly. She froze,
expecting a complaint. Instead, he nodded with approval. "You arranged the books by author. That's good. The last person did it by color. It looked nice, but I could never find anything." He almost smiled. He always said please and thank you, which made her feel respected. But she also noticed the sadness in his eyes. He often tried to talk to his wife, Amah, but she barely responded. When she turned away, he would stand there silently, like someone trying to light a fire that had already gone out. Mrs. Amah Obiagu was beautiful, elegant, stylish, and cold. Her voice was sharp, and her temper even sharper. "Ella, this glass has a stain. Clean it again." Or, "Why is there dust here? Do you even look?" Nothing she did was ever good enough. The coffee was too strong, the tea too light, the pillows too soft. Amah never missed a chance to make her feel small. One afternoon, after another round of scolding, Ella ran to the garden, wiping her tears. The old gardener, Gabriel, was tending to the roses. Without looking up, he said softly, "The new help, right? How are you finding it?" She tried to smile. "It's a lot to learn." He nodded, knowingly. "The last girl stayed 2 months. The one before that, 3 weeks. He looked at her, his eyes kind but tired. "Madam doesn't like the help to stay too long. She always finds a reason." His words hit her hard. The job, the house, the little peace she had, all of it could disappear any time. The mansion wasn't the dream it looked like. It was beautiful, yes, but it was also a cage, and now she was trapped inside it.
Amah Obiagu was, at her core, an opportunist. She had grown up comfortable, but craved a life of extreme luxury and drama. Her marriage to Emeka 8 months ago was a calculated move. He offered stability, immense wealth, and a respected name. But for Amah, the life of a billionaire's wife quickly became dull. The quiet dinners, the business talks, the predictable routine, it all felt like a beautiful, gilded cage. She missed the adrenaline rush of her past. That past had a name, Deji. He was her first crush, a man from the wrong side of the tracks, with a dangerous charm and a rugged, unpredictable lifestyle that had always excited her. Unlike Emeka, who built empires with contracts, Deji operated in the shadows, a master of fast money schemes that eventually landed him in prison for fraud. Amah had never truly gotten over him. His recent release from prison had been the spark that reignited the fire in her life. They had secretly reconnected weeks ago, and for Amah, it was like coming alive again. She was intoxicated by the secrecy and the danger. To make Deji happy and secure their future together, she was willing to do anything. On a sunny afternoon, Amah instructed Ella to set up the outdoor speakers by the pool for a private party she was having with an old-school friend. Ella, tasked with the household tablet that controlled the smart home system, did as she was told. As she fiddled with the audio settings, she accidentally paired her own Bluetooth earpiece with the main outdoor system instead of the portable speaker. Unaware of the connection, she slipped the earpiece in to test it, expecting to hear music. Instead, Amah's voice, crystal clear and intimate, filled her ear. "She's leaving for the Ogun State Project in 3 days," Amah was saying. "It's the perfect opportunity." A deeper, rougher male voice, Deji, replied, "The site visit? Good. I've already been to the garage. Posed as a mechanic doing a free checkup. The brakes are taken care of. They'll hold for the first hour. Give him a false sense of security. Then, on that expressway, they'll fail when he needs the most." Ella stood frozen, her blood running cold. She fumbled for her phone, her hands trembling, trying to open the recording app. In her panic, her fingers slipped and the phone clattered to the stone patio. By the time she retrieved it, the crucial details had been spoken. "Are you sure it will look like an accident?" Amah asked, her voice laced with a sickening excitement. "Of course," Deji purred. "A tragic loss. The great Emeka Obiagu, gone too soon. And you, my love, will be the grieving widow, inheriting everything. No more boring billionaire life. We can finally be together with his entire empire as our playground." Ella stood rooted to the spot, the tablet forgotten in her hands. The weight of what she had heard crushed her. She had the truth, a horrifying secret that could save a man's life, but she had no proof. The recording app was open now, but it was blank, capturing only the gentle rustle of the wind and the distant hum of the city, a silent witness to a conversation that had already sealed a death sentence. She was just a maid with a terrifying story. Who would ever believe her over the elegant and sophisticated Mrs. Obiagu? For the rest of the day, Ella moved through the mansion like a ghost. Her hands shook as she polished the same table 3 times. The words she had heard played over and over in her mind like a terrible song. "The brakes are taken care of. They'll fail when he needs them most." She felt sick to her stomach. Mr. Emeka, the only person in this grand house who had shown her kindness, was in grave danger. A heavy fear settled in her heart. She was trapped. She knew a terrible secret, but she had no proof for it. No recording, no piece of paper, no witness. It was her word against that of a rich, powerful woman. If she went to the police, they would likely laugh at her. If she told Mr. Emeka, would he even listen? He loved his wife. He might think Ella was crazy, or, even worse, that she was trying to cause trouble for her own gain. She knew she had to try. She spent the next day looking for any chance to talk to him alone. But Mr. Emeka was a busy man. When he was home, he was either in his office on important calls or with his wife. Ella would hover near the door, her heart pounding, trying to find the right moment. Once, he walked out of his study and nearly bumped into her. "Ella, is everything all right?" he asked, but he was looking at his phone, his mind clearly somewhere else. "Sir, I need to tell you something," she stammered, her voice barely a whisper. "It's about your car." But just then, his phone rang. He held up a finger to her. "One moment, it's the minister calling. This is important." He turned away and walked back into his study, closing the door. Her courage vanished. The opportunity was gone. She felt completely powerless. She was just the maid, invisible, unimportant. How could she convince a billionaire that his own wife was planning to kill him? He would probably get angry and fire her on the spot. Then, not only would Mr. Emeka die, but her family would lose the money they desperately needed. The weight of the secret felt like it was crushing her. She couldn't eat. She couldn't sleep. She watched Mr. Emeka go about his day, unaware that in just 2 days his wife had planned a terrible accident for him. Ella felt the seconds ticking away, and with no proof and no way to warn him, she felt utterly hopeless. What could she possibly do to stop this?
The day before the trip arrived, the air in the mansion felt heavy with tension. Ella moved through her chores like she was in a bad dream. Every time she heard a car outside, her heart jumped. She kept watching Mr. Emeka, hoping for a miracle, a chance to pull him aside and make him listen. That evening, she was cleaning the hallway near the main living area when she heard Amah's voice. She was on the phone, and she sounded different, excited. "Yes, tomorrow is the day," Amah said, her voice low but clear. "He will be driving himself. The driver has the day off, just as I insisted. Everything is set." Ella froze, a cloth still in her hand. Her blood ran cold. She pressed herself against the wall, listening carefully. "Don't worry," Amah continued, a sly smile in her voice. "By this time tomorrow, it will all be over. We will finally be free and together." There was a pause as she listened to the person on the other end. "I know, Deji. I can't wait either. Just make sure everything goes as planned." Hearing this, Ella's legs felt weak. This was no longer a future threat. It was happening tomorrow. The plan was in motion and time was running out. Panic rose in her chest, making it hard to breathe. She had to do something, but what? She still had no proof, and Mr. Emeka was nowhere nearby. She finished her work in a daze, her mind racing. That night she lay in her bed staring at the ceiling. Sleep would not come. All she could think about was Mr. Emeka's kind face and the terrible fate that awaited him. She thought of her own family depending on her job. If she spoke up and failed, she would lose everything. But if she stayed silent, a good man would die. Tears filled her eyes as she realized how helpless she was. The walls of the beautiful mansion felt like a prison. Outside, the moon shone brightly, but all Ella could see was darkness. Morning was coming, and with it, disaster. She had one last night to find a way to stop it, but no plan came to mind, only fear and the crushing weight of knowing too much. The morning sun rose, bright and clear, a cruel contrast to the storm raging inside Ella. She had not slept at all. Her eyes were red, and her whole body felt tight with fear. Today was the day. She could hear Mr. Emeka moving around upstairs, getting ready for his trip. Each sound felt like a countdown to a disaster. She stood in the kitchen, pretending to clean, but her eyes were fixed on the window that looked out to the driveway. Her mind was a frantic mess, searching for a solution. Should she slash the tires? But the security would catch her. Should she hide his car keys? He would just find them and be angry. Every idea seemed stupid and impossible. Then she saw him. Mr. Emeka walked out of the house, dressed in a sharp suit. He looked calm and focused, completely unaware of the danger waiting for him. He was heading straight for the black SUV, the death trap. A cold wave of panic washed over Ella. This was it. In moments, he would get in that car and drive to his death. She had no proof, no time to explain. She had to stop him from getting into that vehicle right now. Her body moved before her mind could think. She dropped the claw she was holding and ran. She pushed the kitchen door open and burst out into the driveway. "Sir, wait!" she shouted, her voice sounding strange and desperate to her own ears. Emeka turned, a look of mild surprise on his face. He was already holding the car key. "Ella, what is it? I'm in a hurry." She ran up to him, her heart pounding so hard she thought it would break her ribs. She had no plan, no words that would make him understand in seconds. There was only one thing she could think of that would cause enough shock, enough confusion to stop him completely. I can't let you leave without telling you this," she stammered, her eyes wide with terror. Before he could react, before he could pull away, she grabbed his face with both hands and kissed him. It was not a gentle kiss. It was a hard, desperate, passionate kiss filled with all the fear and urgency she felt. It was her last, wild attempt to save his life. For a moment, the world stood still. Emeka was frozen, utterly stunned. Then reality crashed back. He pushed her away with a force that made her stumble back. His face was a mask of shock and then rising anger. "What is the meaning of this?" he thundered, his voice echoing in the quiet morning. "Have you lost your mind?" But Ella didn't care about his anger. She didn't care about the consequences. She stood there, breathing heavily, watching him. He was not in the car. For now, he was safe. Her desperate act had worked. But the real storm was only just beginning.
The silence after the billionaire shout was heavy and dangerous. He stared at Ella, his chest heaving, his face a mix of confusion and pure rage. He wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, as if trying to erase what had just happened. "Have you gone completely mad?" he demanded, his voice low and shaking. "What kind of foolishness is this?" Before Ella could even try to form a word, a sharp, furious scream cut through the air. "What is going on here?" They both turned. Amah stood on the balcony, her face twisted in a mask of fury. She had seen everything. She stormed down the stairs, her expensive heels clicking like gunshots on the marble floor. She marched right up to them, her eyes burning with hate, first at Ella, then at her husband. "So this is what you do behind my back?" she shrieked at Emeka. "With this house girl, in my own home!" She turned her venom on Ella. "You dirty, low-class snake! I gave you a job, and this is how you repay me? By trying to steal my husband?" "Amah, it's not what you think," Emeka started, his voice tight with embarrassment. "Don't you dare!" she screamed, cutting him off. "I saw it with my own eyes. She threw herself at you, and you were just standing there." She pointed a trembling finger at Ella, who stood frozen, her head bowed. "Arrest her! She just assaulted my husband! Take her to the police station right now!" The guards moved quickly, grabbing Ella's arms. She didn't resist. She just looked at Emeka, her eyes pleading with him to understand, to see the truth behind her desperate act. But Emeka was too humiliated and angry. He looked away from her. The shock of the kiss, and now his wife's very public accusations, had left him flustered and furious. "This is a complete mess," he muttered, running a hand over his face. He looked at the car, then back at the chaotic scene. His trip, his important meeting, everything was ruined. "Forget it," he said to no one in particular, his voice filled with defeat and anger. "I'm not going anywhere." He turned and walked stiffly back towards the house, unable to even look at his wife or the maid being dragged away. Amah watched him go, her face a perfect mask of wifely fury. But inside, a storm of panic was raging. The plan was ruined. He wasn't in the car. He wasn't dead. This stupid maid had destroyed everything with her insane stunt. She turned her furious glare back at Ella, who was being led away by security. The hatred in her eyes was now very real. This girl had not just embarrassed her, she had jeopardized a multi-billion naira scheme and her future with Deji. "Take her away," Amah spat, her voice dripping with venom. "You will pay for this." She stood alone in the driveway, her mind racing. She had to maintain her act as the betrayed wife, but she also had to get Emeka back into that car. The plan had failed today, but it was not over. She would find another way. For now, the maid was out of the way, and she was still the grieving victim. That was a small advantage she could use. But satisfaction was the last thing she felt. It was pure, seething frustration.
Back inside the mansion, Emeka found Amah pacing in the living room. "I want her charged to court," she declared, her voice still sharp with fury. "I will not have a husband snatcher under my roof." "Amah, please calm down," Emeka said, trying to sound reasonable. What she did was insane. But an affair? It's nonsense. You know me. I have never once looked at another woman. She kissed me. I did not kiss her. It came out of nowhere." "Out of nowhere?" Amah spun around, her eyes flashing. "These poor girls are cunning, Emeka. They plan these things. She saw a rich man and decided to shoot her shot. And you stood there and let her." "I was stunned," he insisted, growing frustrated. "It lasted 2 seconds. There is nothing between us. Nothing at all." But Amah refused to hear it. "No, If you do not punish her severely, you're agreeing with her actions. You're telling her it was okay." She stormed off to her room, leaving him standing alone in the silence. Feeling exhausted and misunderstood, Emeka retreated to his study. He poured a drink and sank into his leather chair, the event playing over and over in his mind. The look on Ella's face wasn't of seduction. It was pure panic. Her eyes had been wide with fear, not passion. Why? The question wouldn't leave him. It was so unlike the quiet, hard-working woman he knew. She had never been forward or inappropriate. For her to do something so extreme, so self-destructive, it made no sense. She had to know it would cost her the job her family desperately needed. What could possibly be worth that? He couldn't let this go. He couldn't spend another moment wondering. He had to look her in the eye and ask the question that was now burning in his mind. He put down his glass and stood up. His decision was made. He got into his car and drove off. He was going to the police station. He needed to hear her side of the story, no matter how unbelievable it might be. At the station, he was led to a small room where Ella sat at a bare table. She looked small and tired, but when she saw him, her eyes lit up with a strange sense of relief. "Sir," she whispered, her voice hoarse, "you're safe." "Safe?" Emeka repeated, his voice cold. "What are you talking about? Why did you do that, Ella? I deserve an explanation." The words poured out of her in a rushed, terrified whisper. She told him everything. She told him about the Bluetooth speaker, about hearing Amah and a man named Deji. She described the plan to tamper with his brakes, the trip to Ogun State, the promise of a fatal accident. She explained that her kiss was a desperate, stupid attempt to stop him from getting into that car. Emeka listened, his initial anger slowly being replaced by a cold dread. It was a wild, unbelievable story, but the sheer terror in her eyes was real. "You expect me to believe this?" he asked, though his voice lacked its earlier conviction. "You have no proof, no recording, nothing." "I know, sir," Ella said, her shoulders slumping in defeat. "I dropped my phone. I have nothing. But I swear on my parents' lives it is the truth. Why would I lie and end up here? What would I gain?" That was the question that haunted Emeka as he left the station. She was right. Her actions had cost her everything. There was no logical reason for her to make up such an elaborate story. He drove home in a daze, his mind racing. When he walked into the house, Amah was waiting for him. She immediately launched into another tirade about the affair, her voice sharp and dramatic. Emeka held up a hand to stop her. "Amah, enough. I've had a long day. I just want to rest." To his surprise, Amah's anger seemed to vanish. She stepped closer, her voice becoming sweet and concerned. "Of course, my love. You must be so tired. It's a good thing you didn't travel today. So, when will you reschedule the trip to Ogun State? Tomorrow? The day after?" Her question hung in the air. Emeka froze. He looked at his wife, really looked at her. She hadn't asked him if he was okay after the shocking incident. She hadn't demanded more details about the maid kissing him. She was only interested in when he would take the trip, the very trip that was at the center of Ella's terrifying story. A cold knot tightened in his stomach. For the first time, a seed of doubt about his wife was planted in his mind, and it began to grow.
The next morning, Emeka told Amah he was rescheduling his trip to Ogun State for that afternoon. He saw the flicker of triumph in her eyes before she could hide it. But instead of preparing for the trip, he drove his SUV to a trusted, private mechanic far from his usual garage. He told the man to check the brakes thoroughly, saying he'd heard a strange noise. An hour later, the mechanic called him over. His face was grim. "Sir," he said, pointing beneath the car, "this is no accident. Your primary brake line has been carefully cut. It's a clean cut, meant to look like wear and tear. It would have held for a short while, then failed completely when you press the pedal hard, probably at high speed." A cold, hard certainty settled in Emeka's soul. Ella had been telling the truth. His wife had truly planned to have him killed. He paid the mechanic handsomely for his silence and drove to a hotel, his mind formulating a plan. He would give his wife the tragedy she was waiting for. Later that day, from the hotel room, he had his most loyal security officer make the call. He listened on the line as the officer, pretending to be a police investigator, informed Amah that her husband's car had crashed on the expressway to Ogun State. He was told there were no survivors. Then, using a hidden camera feed set up in his own home, he watched. He saw Amah take the call. He watched her face. There were no tears, no shock. After hanging up, she didn't collapse in grief. Instead, a wide, triumphant smile spread across her face. She immediately picked up her phone. "He's gone," she whispered excitedly. "It worked, Deji. It worked. Come over now, my love. We need to go claim his body, and then his entire empire is ours." Emeka watched, his heart turning to stone. The final proof was not in the tampered brakes, but in his wife's joyful celebration of his death. Just as Amah and Deji were celebrating with a bottle of champagne, the study door swung open. Emeka stood there, his face a mask of cold fury. The champagne flute slipped from Amah's hand, shattering on the marble floor. Her face went white with terror. Deji froze, his triumphant smile vanishing. "Emeka!" Amah gasped. You're alive!" Disappointed, Emeka's voice was low and dangerous, filled with a pain deeper than anger. "I heard everything. The police call, your celebration, all of it." He looked at his wife, the woman he had loved and provided for. "I gave you everything, and you planned to have me killed for it." "It's not what you think, Emeka," Amah cried, stumbling forward. He forced me." But it was too late. With a sharp nod from Emeka, his security team swarmed into the room. They swiftly apprehended a struggling Deji and a sobbing Amah, who was now begging for forgiveness. Emeka watched them being led away, his heart a hollow ache in his chest. The beautiful life he thought he had was a lie, but it was over. The betrayal was complete, but the danger was finally past. Emeka went straight to the police station. This time, he was not a confused man seeking answers, but a powerful one demanding justice. He explained everything to the officers. The charges against Ella were dropped immediately. When she walked out, squinting in the sunlight, he was waiting by his car. "Ella," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "I am so sorry I did not believe you." Tears filled her eyes, but they were tears of relief. "You saved my life," he continued. "You sacrificed your dignity and your freedom for a man who was a stranger to you. Why?" "Because you were kind to me, sir, when no one else was. I could not let her destroy a good man." Her answer humbled him. In his world of greed and betrayal, her simple loyalty was priceless. He did not offer her her old job back. Instead, he offered her a future. "I want you to come work at Obiagu Industries. We will start you as an executive trainee. Your intelligence should not be wasted.
I will also make sure your parents have the best doctors and that your brother Chidi can return to school." Ella was speechless, her hands trembling as she accepted this life-changing gift. In the following weeks, with Amah gone, the mansion felt vast and empty. Emeka was lonely. Ella, remembering his kindness, would often visit after her work at the office. She would help with small chores, not as a maid, but as a friend. They would sit and talk for hours about her family, his work, her dreams. He found himself laughing again, enjoying her company and the quiet comfort she brought into his lonely home. A new, gentle bond was forming, built on a foundation of gratitude, respect, and a shared journey through darkness.
The grand ballroom at the Echo Hotels shimmered under a canopy of crystal chandeliers. But the glittering assembly of Lagos's elite wasn't there for a typical gala. Tonight was entirely for Ella. Billionaire Emeka had orchestrated this evening of appreciation solely to honor the woman who had saved his life. As she stood beside him in an elegant gown, being introduced to governors and titans of industry, Ella felt both profoundly proud and deeply uncertain. She had come to cherish their quiet evenings in the Ikoyi mansion. Conversations about business and dreams had slowly mended his lonely heart, and her own affection had taken quiet root. Yet she guarded her feelings fiercely, convinced their worlds were still oceans apart, that hoping for more was like reaching for the stars, beautiful but impossibly distant. Then, as the music softened, Emeka turned to her, his gaze blocking out the entire room. "Ella," he began, his voice low and heartfelt, "tonight isn't just about thanking you for saving my life. This past year, you haven't just built a new career, you've rebuilt my heart." He took her hand, his eyes earnest. "The kiss that saved my life, would you let it be the beginning of ours?" For a breathtaking moment, she was speechless, her carefully built walls crumbling to dust. Then a radiant, hopeful smile spread across her face, a silent yes to a future she had never dared to imagine.